Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life. Please take a moment to like and subscribe, it really helps.
All right, ready to dive into a mountain of government oversight? You might have missed this while scrolling through the news, but the Government Accountability Office, the GAO,
They're the ones keeping tabs on federal
yeah,
agencies.
like those super organized friends always know where everything is.
Well, they've issued a ton of recommendations, 5,387 to be exact.
Wow, that's a lot.
And get this, 483 of them are labeled priority. A whole lot of, you really need to fix this notes.
It's like a to-do list that just keeps growing, huh? Today, we're focusing on the Department of Defense.
The DoD.
Yeah, the DoD, because, well, it's the DoD. Tons on their plate.
And these priority recommendations for the DoD, super important. They point to areas where improvements could have a huge impact, not just on how the DoD operates.
Right, but on people's lives, too, service members and their families.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's start with something relatable, healthcare. The GAO has been flagging some areas where the DoD really needs to improve when it comes to the military health system.
One of the most recent reports, GAO 24-106-107, looks at the process for taking clinical adverse actions against healthcare providers, basically making sure that when there are concerns about a doctor's or nurse's performance.
Right, there's a clear way to address those concerns.
Exactly.
Makes sense, we're talking about people's health.
Right, you want to make sure the system for dealing with potential issues is solid.
Rock solid.
The GAO found the current process wasn't as robust as it should be. Now, the DoD agreed with the recommendation.
So we'll see what changes they make, right?
Exactly. So if you or someone you know needs care at a military treatment facility, keep an eye out for changes from this recommendation.
Yeah, it could directly impact the quality of care you receive.
Absolutely. Another report, GAO 23-106094, highlights a different but related concern, the impact of personnel reductions on those same military treatment facilities.
So they're saying, hey, you can't just cut staff without thinking about patient care.
Precisely. They found that reductions could lead to longer wait times, even compromise the quality of care. The GAD agreed with this recommendation too, but they haven't fully implemented a solution yet.
This isn't just about numbers and budgets, is it? It's about real people.
You're right.
Imagine being a service member, needing medical attention, but facing delays because of staffing shortages. That's a real concern the GAO is highlighting.
These recommendations often get lost in the bureaucratic jargon, but they really represent real-life consequences.
For service members and their family.
Right.
Speaking of real-life consequences, the GAO also sounded the alarm on service member fatigue.
And we're not talking about just needing an extra cup of coffee.
Right, this is serious.
We're talking about exhaustion that can impact performance, decision-making, even put lives at risk.
No kidding. In report GAO-24105917, they called on the DoD to get a handle on how they're managing fatigue.
The problem is, right now, efforts to address fatigue are all over the place. No central authority. It's like everyone's trying to solve the problem on their own, no clear strategy.
So the DoD knows about the problem, but the GAO is saying you need a unified approach. Service members are in high-pressure environments, and fatigue can have serious consequences.
Exactly. And this recommendation is super important because fatigue often goes hand in hand with other issues, like we just discussed with the military healthcare.
Like a domino effect, fatigue leads to mistakes, which then strains the healthcare system.
It's all connected.
It really is.
And it highlights the importance of looking at these GAO recommendations not in isolation, but as pieces of a bigger picture. Speaking of feeling stressed and unheard, let's switch to privatized military housing. Those challenges.
Oh yeah, remember those reports about families living in homes with mold, leaks, serious problems? It was a huge scandal.
Right, and the GAO is still pushing for improvements.
Good.
Report GAO 23-105377 focused on the need for the DoD to do a way better job of listening to the people who live in those homes.
Seems obvious, right? Ask the people living there if you want to know what's wrong with the house.
You'd think so, but the GAO found that getting feedback from residents and using that for oversight, it just wasn't effective.
So basically telling the DoD, give military families a voice, make sure their concerns are heard.
Exactly. And the good news is the DoD agreed with this recommendation.
So hopefully some real progress on this issue.
Yeah, it's about making sure military families have safe, healthy, comfortable homes.
Which in turn affects the well-being of our forces.
Exactly. It's all connected.
It is. It really is. Let's move on to something less visible but equally important, how the DoD manages its service contracts. We're talking big money here, right?
Billions, yes.
Billions, wow.
In GAO 23-106123, the GAO questioned how well the DoD forecasts its budget needs for these contracts.
So, like planning a road trip without knowing gas prices, you might end up stranded.
Great analogy. They found the DoD's forecasting methods were often inaccurate,
Leading to
budget shortfalls, delays, even project cancellations.
Sounds like inefficiency and wasted taxpayer dollars.
It is, and here's the thing. The DoD only partially agreed with this recommendation.
Meaning,
They haven't fully addressed the problem yet, which makes you wonder, why not? What are the roadblocks?
I'd love to dig deeper, find out what's behind that reluctance to fully embrace the GAO's recommendations, acknowledging the problem but not quite ready to jump in and fix it.
That's what these deep dives are all about. They raise questions, get us thinking critically about how our government operates, where we can improve. Speaking of areas for improvement, emerging technologies like blockchain.
Okay, hot topic. Everyone's talking about crypto and blockchain, but it sounds like the GAO is saying, hold on, let's not get ahead of ourselves here and make sure we have the right safeguards in place.
Exactly. In Report 23-105-346, they highlighted the need for better oversight of blockchain products, especially financial transactions.
So not about stopping innovation, but making sure that innovation doesn't compromise security and stability.
Exactly.
Right.
They called on key agencies, including the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, the SEC, to work together to address potential risks.
So a united front to tackle the challenges of this rapidly evolving tech landscape.
Right. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Most of these agencies neither fully agreed nor disagreed with the GAO.
Really?
They pointed to existing efforts, but the GAO's point is, those haven't always been enough, not timely or comprehensive enough.
Sounds like technology's outpacing regulation while these agencies try to catch up.
As of July 2024, those agencies formed a working group to address these risks, but still haven't fully implemented the GAO's recommendation for a coordinated strategy.
So it's still up in the air whether they'll be able to effectively regulate this space. Government oversight needs to be agile to keep up with tech advancements.
You got it.
Speaking of things that are both complex and potentially risky, nuclear waste.
Yeah, this is a long-standing issue.
It is.
And it looks like the GAO is still pushing for improvements in how the Department of Energy manages its cleanup programs.
Okay.
In Report GAO 23-105-665, they specifically called for better guidance on incorporating risk-informed decision-making at cleanup sites.
Breaking it down for me, what does risk-informed decision-making mean here?
It means before deciding how to clean up a site, you need to understand the risks to both human health and the environment.
So not just throwing money at the problem, you're making strategic decisions based on a solid risk assessment.
Exactly. And the GAO found that without those consistent and transparent risk assessments, cleanup efforts might not be as efficient or effective.
Could be spending more money and taking longer to clean up sites.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the Department of Energy's response.
Yeah.
They agreed with it, working on implementing it. But as of July 2024, the final guidance hadn't been issued yet.
Another example of these recommendations facing delays and bureaucratic hurdles.
It's like turning a giant ship around takes time and effort, but the GAO's there to keep nudging that ship in the right direction.
And that ship is carrying some pretty precious cargo.
It is the health and safety of our communities and the environment.
Now shifting to something essential for national security and environmental protection, long-term storage of high-risk radioactive materials.
Right. Report GAO 24-105-998 really dug into this, focusing on Americium-241.
That stuff's the real deal, highly radioactive, potentially dangerous.
The GAO recommended that the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or NRC, working with the Department of Energy, figure out a better way to secure this material, until a permanent solution is found.
So we're not just talking about putting it in a storage locker and forgetting about it.
Right.
We need a solid long-term plan.
Absolutely. But here's a little pushback. The NRC argued existing regulations already address safe storage, but they did agree to work with other agencies to find that long-term solution.
Okay, so some disagreement about the urgency, but at least everyone's at the table recognizing this is an issue.
It's like they're saying, hey, we're doing okay for now, but let's not wait for something to go wrong to come up with a better plan.
Being proactive, thinking ahead, that's the GAO's job.
Absolutely.
And that proactive approach is crucial when talking about homeland security, right? Report GAO 23-103-959 looks at the Department of Homeland Security's biometric identity system, HART. Biometrics sounds like sci-fi.
It does, but it's becoming more common. Fingerprint scanners on our phones, facial recognition for security.
Right.
And the GAO's concern is that while HART has potential for enhancing security, there are also shortcomings in its management and privacy safeguards.
So finding that balance between security and privacy.
Exactly, making sure we're using these technologies effectively, but without infringing on people's rights.
Right.
One key recommendation from the GAO, the DHS needs to improve its schedule estimates for the program.
Get a better handle on your timelines.
Exactly, make sure this program is implemented efficiently and effectively.
Got it.
And was the DHS receptive?
Were they?
They were agreed with the recommendation, working on providing updated timelines, but the GAO will be watching, making sure those timelines are realistic and that privacy concerns are addressed. It's about accountability.
Making sure taxpayer dollars are used wisely and that programs are implemented responsibly.
Exactly. That idea of fragmentation, it comes up a lot, even when we're talking about taking care of our veterans.
True. The Department of Veterans Affairs, the VA, they've been dealing with these challenges too, especially with that new electronic health records system.
Yeah, that's been in the news a lot.
It is.
And the GAO has some concern about how it's being rolled out.
Makes sense.
Report 23-106731 highlighted key issues that need to be addressed before wider deployment. It's like, launching new software without training your staff.
Right. Bound to have problems.
You're going to have hiccups.
So it's not just the technology itself, it's about how it's implemented, how users are supported.
Exactly. The GAO specifically recommended the VA improve communication with users, make sure staff are trained, and address any barriers to change.
Don't forget about the people who actually have to use the system.
Right, exactly. And the VA agreed, working on addressing those issues.
Yeah.
But it's ongoing, and the GAO will be monitoring, making sure the transition is smooth.
It's the health care of our veterans we're talking about. Can't mess around with that.
Absolutely. Speaking of supporting veterans, Report 23-105343 looked at the VEVETech program, helps veterans transition into tech careers.
Great program.
It is.
And the GAO had some ideas to make it even better.
They recommended the VA develop a more standardized way to calculate the program's employment rate.
Okay, why is that so important?
Well, it's about making sure we can accurately measure the program's success, compare it to other similar programs.
Right, we need to know if they're working.
Exactly. Accountability, making sure we're getting our money's worth.
Makes sense.
Now, here's where it gets interesting. The VA neither agreed nor disagreed with the recommendation.
Really?
Said they have no plans to implement it.
Surprising clear metrics seem like a good idea.
You'd think so, right? It's something the GAO will likely keep pushing for, greater transparency and accountability. I mean, how can you know if a program is effective if you're not measuring its outcomes consistently?
True. Even when the GAO makes recommendations that seem like common sense, there can be resistance. That's why their role is so important. They keep pushing for those improvements.
Absolutely.
Even when it's tough.
Right. Okay, let's talk about something that affects anyone who's worked for the federal government, the retirement process.
I've heard it can be complicated.
It can be. Report 19-217 looked into this, specifically the time it takes the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, to process retirement applications.
Imagine dedicating your career to public service. You're ready to retire, then you get stuck in paperwork and delays.
It happens.
Not a smooth transition.
The GAO found a lot of those delays were due to outdated technology and inefficient processes.
The joys of bureaucracy.
Right. They recommended OPM develop a comprehensive IT modernization plan, streamline the whole thing.
Time for an upgrade.
OPM agreed with the recommendation, but they've hit some delays in implementing it. As of March 2022, they were still working on that modernization plan.
Government moves slowly, sometimes.
It does. These changes take time. But hopefully that new system will be up and running soon. Smoother transitions for everyone.
I hope so.
Speaking of needing updates, the GAO also pointed out the government's approach to managing deferred maintenance and repair of facilities.
One of those things you ignore until it's a big problem.
Right, like putting off going to the dentist. You save money now, but bigger problems later.
Ouch.
Report 22-104481 really looked into this, highlighting the risks of delaying those repairs, especially for the DoD.
So a leaky roof at a military base, if you don't fix it, mold, water damage, even structural problems.
Expensive repairs could even compromise safety and readiness.
Yikes.
The GAO recommended the DoD assess its guidance on sustainable management systems, make sure facility data is comparable across the department.
Basically a better system for tracking these repairs and making sure they're prioritized.
Exactly. And the DoD agreed they were working on updating their guidance.
Okay.
But as of September 2024, they hadn't finalized those updates yet.
Work in progress.
It is, but at least they're moving in the right direction.
That's good to hear. We've covered a lot of ground today, from military healthcare to cybersecurity, from nuclear waste to space exploration.
And everything in between?
It's clear the GAO plays a vital role in ensuring our government is functioning effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely. They're the watchdogs, making sure taxpayer dollars are used wisely and that programs are serving the people they're intended to help.
What really stands out to me is the sheer scope of their work. They're looking at everything.
Everything. And they're not afraid to ask tough questions, challenge the status quo, push for improvements even when it's uncomfortable.
It's a reminder that government accountability is everyone's responsibility.
It is. We need to stay informed, engaged, hold our elected officials accountable.
And don't forget about the power of those priority recommendations. They're a roadmap for making our government work better.
They are. So next time you see a GAO report, don't just scroll past it. Take a look. It might be about something that affects you directly.
And remember, your voice matters. Stay informed, ask questions, and demand better from our government.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into government accountability.
Until next time.
Check the description for more info on how to attain the full list of priorities. Join X.com and voice your opinions on the priorities for government reform by engaging in the conversation. Tag at Doge and at Non-Citizen 5.